Hi guys, welcome back to our channel.
Today we are pre-recording our June entertainment review video and scheduling to post it on Saturday. We are pre-recording this video because we will be traveling on Saturday and we won't be home at the time we were originally going to record this video. So to begin, we just got back from seeing Inside Out 2. Um our regular cast of characters is back in this movie, aside in also adding some new emotions in for embarrassment, boredom,
I think that there was also anxiety
anxiety, and envy.
and envy, right?
So who are your favorite characters?
It's good to see the five faces in Riley's mind again, including Joy, and then Riley herself and her parents. So
And Riley's two best friends, Grace and Bree, are also main characters in this movie. Um, and I really liked them. They were great new additions to the cast. What would you give Inside Out 2 for a rating?
my rating for this new movie is B plus.
I agree with you. And we also talked to Patty and Sonia on the phone a couple of days ago, and they saw If a couple of weeks ago, which we reviewed in our last video, and we talked about our ratings for this movie, and we agreed that our um, cumulative ranking of this movie is, I think, a B, because we gave it a B minus, Patty gave it a B, and Sonia gave it an A plus. So, next we wanted to talk about Mary Poppins. We recently saw Mary Poppins at Portland Players, which is the theater that's right down the street from where we live.
And we both ushered in that, so we got in to see for free.
So we were in Mary Poppins at Friends of the Amato Center in 2015. I was in the Jolly Holiday and Let's Go Fly a Kite ensemble, and he was in the Precision and Order bank scene. Our favorite songs from Mary Poppins are Anything Can Happen, Jolly Holiday, Precision and Order, Let's Go Fly a Kite, Step in Time, and Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Um,
And an interesting thing about it is one of the first times that we were rehearsing for Mary Poppins after we got in, we practiced how to spell that long word.
and during Tech Week, I consistently had a dream that I was in the play 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, and supercalifragilisticexpialidocious was my word in the spelling bee because I had been practicing the song so much during rehearsal. So I just figured I would share that memory with you guys. Notable performances in the Portland Prairies production of Mary Poppins were by Ellie Joseph, who played Mary Poppins,
Summer Pratt,
who
who played
played
Bert,
Bert, C.J. Motley, who played Jane Banks, Nathaniel Cummins, who played Michael Banks, Whitney Brown, who played Miss Andrew or Mrs. Corey, Krista Whitehouse, who played Neely in the Tap Ensemble. For Let's talk about book reviews first, and then we'll move into Cougar Town in a little bit. So the first book I wanted to talk about is This Summer Will Be Different. This was Carly Fortune's new release from last month. Carly Fortune is a Canadian based romance author who has also written Meet Me at the Lake and Every Summer After. I have previously read Meet Me at the Lake and I gave that a B plus. I don't want to spoil too much of this book as I have recommended it to my aunt to read, and I'm waiting to hear if she has. I will wait to hear back from her before I can give a full review on it because I don't want to spoil anything for her about it. But I can say that I really enjoyed this book and I love the setting of Prince Edward Island, and we're eventually planning a trip to go there sometime next year and we can't wait to start planning it. So I gave this book 4.75 stars on Goodreads. The next book that we wanted to talk about is called The Sweetness of Forgetting by Kristen Harmel.
and I've read that before.
We've both read this book before. I don't know, remember when you read it, but I just read it I just finished it a couple of weeks ago. So this book is a dual POV historical fiction book. In present day, it is set on Cape Cod, and this girl Hope moves there to help her family run their bakery. And the other perspective is from the grandmother's point of view, who is a Holocaust survivor. So she's basically telling her romance story to Hope about how she met her grandfather during World War II. And I really love this book. Kristen Harmel also wrote a book that my friend Abby recommended to me called The Room at the Rue Emile, which I've been trying to find at the library but can't seem to, but it is still on my list. And we made the recipe from chapter 19 of this book, which was blueberry muffins. We had that for breakfast this morning. What would you give the recipe for ranking?
I give it 9 stars out of 10. And what the recipe calls for is not only the basic mix, but also the little topping for the streusel that you put on the muffins. Now, I would also suggest that the sour cream really works for this recipe because it makes it nice blended and gives it a nice balance and taste with the blueberries.
And I give The Sweetness of Forgetting a B, and 4 stars. What do you give it for a rating?
I would say it's a 4 star for me.
So we are restarting our series about how serious issues are tackled in the media. We covered this topic quite extensively last fall, and we are breaking things up into more digestible discussion points for our summer reading for our summer entertainment wrap ups. For this month, we're going to be talking about Friends, Bridgerton, Family Ties, and The Office. So to begin, I wanted to first talk about the episode of Friends, the one with the lesbian wedding, which we have previously reviewed, but the reason why I'm talking about it again is because it's Pride Month. And the reason why this episode is one of my favorite Friends episodes is it's the episode that Carol and Susan get married in. Carol, for those of you who are not familiar with Friends, is Ross's ex-wife from his first marriage, and they have a son together named Ben, who is in a few of the earlier episodes, but then he disappears after Emma is born mysteriously. Nobody figured out why. So I love the scene in this episode where Carol comes over to talk to Ross and says she's going to call off the wedding because her parents are not coming because they don't support her marriage to Susan. And this is one of the main moments in Friends where I really like Ross. The rest of the time, I hate him. I think he's whiny and sort of a narcissist. But in this episode, he really is a stand up guy because he basically says to Carol, if you really love Susan, you should go ahead and marry her and screw what your parents think because they're obviously not supportive. So Ross ends up replacing Carol's dad to walk her down the aisle, which shows how selfless he is because obviously his divorce really hurt him a lot. So I really love that episode of Friends. It's one of my favorite episodes from season 2. I have mentioned it before at length in my other videos where I have talked about Friends over on my YouTube channel. And if you want to watch those videos, please go ahead and watch them. So I gave that episode an A minus, and we recently had the Friends cookbook recipes for the chicken polenta and pigs in a blanket, which we have also previously had. What did we give the recipes for a ranking?
I think we gave them 8 stars out of 10.
Okay, so the next book I wanted to talk about today is Bridgerton. I have started to read the Bridgerton series ahead of watching a Netflix show because I have never watched it, and I'm a little behind because the third season of it just came out last month, but I can't watch the third season because I haven't watched the first season yet. So the first book is about Daphne and Simon, and there is a sexual assault scene in this book that was really hard for me to get through, and I almost had to stop reading because it was brutally depicted and I didn't like it, and I didn't really think that topic was handled well in the book. And my friend Kate has been watching season 1 of the TV show, and she said it's not handled very well in a TV show either. Something that is handled very well is Simon stuttering. I think that is very good to show a range of disabilities in different time periods to see how it might have been handled. And in this case, Simon stuttering was handled very well, but I think his father really treated him very poorly and didn't show him much of respect, which I didn't like.
Now, what is a simple cure for when you're struggling with staggering?
I don't really know anybody who has a stutter. I mean, Joe Biden does. I don't know how he overcomes it, but I watched a recent video on YouTube, which is Sarah Without an H, where she reviews the 4th book in the series, Romancing
Mhm.
Mr. Bridgerton, which is Colin and Penelope's book. And I haven't read that book yet, and I'm personally not very sure if I'm going to read the rest of the books because I just couldn't get past that sexual assault scene, and I don't know if things get worse with how they cover that topic. But one thing I was noticing in Sarah Without an H's video when she was talking about Penelope and Colin was that they seem similar to Monica and Chandler on Friends because, you know, in the flashback episodes, it is shown that Monica is really overweight and Penelope starts off the book really overweight like Monica. Colin is also kind of um averse to like like you know how in Friends how Chandler is like afraid of commitment. Colin definitely shows that he is similar to Chandler in that aspect. And then there's a scene, sorry for spoilers in case you haven't read the book yet, of Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. I'm not sure how many people have read the whole Bridgerton series yet, but there's a scene where he cuts his hand on a letter opener in the office when he catches Penelope reading his diary about his trip to Greece. And that made me think of the scene in the flashback episode where Monica drops the knife on Chandler's toe and cuts it off. So enough spoilers. The next episode we wanted to talk about today is um, Family Ties, Say Uncle. This is from season 2 of Family Ties, I believe.
Mhm.
And the serious topic this episode discusses is substance use disorder. So, what did you like the best about this episode?
Well, it's just the fact that it was Tom Hanks in his younger days, and the year was 1984 when the episode first came out. So it was shortly before he was in the movie Splash.
It was very interesting to see Tom Hanks in a younger role. I have never seen Splash, but I think I've seen parts of Big.
Mhm.
I've obviously seen all the Toy Story movies where he voices Woody. I've also
We've also seen,
seen
remember, the People in Your Neighborhood, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
and also A Man Called Ove.
Hmm. Now, in this episode, the it's like Golden Girl's high anxiety because of what Janine says, substance use disorder. But in this case, for the Family Ties, his substance use, Uncle Ed, that is, was high on alcohol.
Right.
And I say to people like Janine that alcohol is almost brutally as dangerous as drug use.
Well, I mean, I learned that when I read Matthew Perry's memoir, and that's what led me into watching more TV episodes and movies about substance use disorder. Because when I first read Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, and the Big Terrible Thing, by the way, spoiler alert for those who haven't read Matthew Perry's memoir yet, is alcoholism. So, um, what really intrigued me is that when I first read Matthew Perry's memoir last spring, I knew nothing about alcoholism. I knew nothing about his substance use disorder. I just watched Friends because it was a funny, goofy show, and I really related to the characters a lot, and I had no idea that Matthew Perry was suffering so much. And basically, his book opened up a whole wormhole of me wanting to watch more media or read about more media with substance use disorder. And we have so with this episode, we would say that substance use disorder is definitely handled very well, and it's the same thing with the Golden Girls episode. What would you give Uncle Ned for a rating?
For my rating, since I was feeling a little bit depressed, seeing how he was yelling during that ending scene, I would say I gave it a B minus.
Yeah, I gave it a B minus as well. For the Golden Girls episode, High Anxiety, where Rose is addicted to pills. We liked that episode slightly better than Uncle Ned, and we think that the Golden Girls really handled that topic well. We gave Uncle Ned a B minus and 6 stars on IMDb, and High Anxiety a B and 8 stars. Now, to an episode that we feel did not handle this situation very well. It is called The One with Russ, Season 2, Episode 10 of Friends, the episode that is right before the one with the lesbian wedding. So, in this episode, Monica dates a guy who they call Fun Bobby. The reason why they call him Fun Bobby is because he is only fun when he drinks, and he's really boring when he's not drinking. So basically, in the scene where he's sober and he's talking a lot about like how hardware stores are not open till 2 o'clock in the morning, when he leaves the room, Chandler basically refers to him as ridiculously dull Bobby. And knowing what Matthew Perry went through with his substance use disorder, I just feel like the writers of Friends should have handled that plot line with a lot more tact than they did, which I found to be very disappointing. So we gave The One with Russ 5 stars and a C. Two other episodes I wanted to mention that we have not watched, but I have watched when they originally aired, that talk about substance use disorder were Saved by the Bell, Season 2, Episode 9, Jesse's Song. For those of you who don't remember this episode, this is the one where Jessie Spano, who is played by Elizabeth Berkley, is under a lot of pressure because she has a big test coming up in biology, and she's also in the talent show, and she gets addicted to caffeine pills. And
No, I thought that was geometry, Gene.
yes, you're right, it is geometry. So Jessie gets addicted to caffeine pills in this episode, and this episode, I think, aired before the one with Russ, but I think the producers of Saved by the Bell handled this topic far better than Friends did. I'm not gonna lie. When this episode aired of Saved by the Bell, I was, let's see,
You must have been 5, Gene, when it first aired on NBC.
okay, to be fair, this show aired when I was 5. This show originally aired when I was 5 years old, but I watched it on reruns at Nick at Night once I was older. But I still remember the episode quite well because I was like 12 or 13 when I saw it at Nick at Night, and I really think that the producers of Saved by the Bell handle this topic really well. Another more recent show that I feel handle this topic well, is called Mom, that starred Allison Janney and Anna Faris. Anna Faris was also on Friends as the birth mother of Chandler and Monica's twins, Jack and Erica. So in season 3, episode 8, Thigh 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 Lap and a Rack of Lamb. Um, the two main characters, who are played by Allison Janney and Anna Faris, are a supporter of somebody who goes to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it basically shows their journey of supporting this person who is in AA, and she is in a relationship with that is codependent with a person who is starting to do drugs again after just getting clean. So sadly, she ends up overdosing. And I remember watching that scene when this episode first aired. This show is more recent. It started to air in 2015, so season 2 was 2016. So this was like 7 or 8 years ago that this show was airing. And I also really appreciated the PSA announcement at the end of the episode that Anna Faris, Allison Janney did with the Surgeon General about alcoholism. And to wrap up this topic, I wanted to talk about the Cougar Town episode Blue Sunday, which is the first episode of season 4, which we recently watched. Now, in this episode, at the very beginning in the cold open, Travis, who is Jules and Bobby's 21-year-old son, calls out his mom and dad and their friends about how much they drink. And I mean, I noticed this from the very beginning of the series. When we first started to rewatch it, I didn't really notice it when I originally watched this series. This series also aired around the same time as Mom did. It ran for 6 seasons from 2015 to 2019, I think. And yeah, I was really grateful that Travis called out his parents and their friends on how much they drank, because I mean, they're even drinking wine at 9 o'clock in the morning, which is sort of ridiculous. And I'm surprised that in therapy, when Jules goes to see her counselor, she doesn't mention how much she drinks, because I feel like I've no offense to Courtney Cox, I love her, but I think when she was writing this show, she really dropped the ball on making a teachable moment from about alcohol use disorder after what happened with the Fun Bobby episode in Friends. So I feel like she really missed an opportunity to talk about substance use disorder, but it was glossed over because it's never mentioned again after Travis calls out his parents and their friends. So we gave Blue Sunday a B minus. And finally, we wanted to talk about The Office.
The Office, right?
So, the 2 episodes of The Office we are discussing today are Gay Witch Hunt and The Convict. And the serious issue that these 2 episodes cover is racism. So in Gay Witch Hunt, Oscar, who is a Mexican character who is gay, is forced to come out in front of everybody else in the entire office by Michael because he calls him an anti-gay slur. And I just think that Michael was very insensitive towards the fact that Oscar was not ready to reveal his sexuality to everybody else. So we gave this episode,
I think it was a C for me.
I agree, and that's like 4 to 5 stars on IMDb. And then the other episode was The Convict. So in this episode, they find out that one of their by this point, in this season, right now we're currently on season 3. By this point, Scranton branch has merged together with another branch, and one of the workers from the branch that they merged with ends up being a convict who's working at Dunder Mifflin on work release, and this worker also happens to be black. So not only is Michael rude about his race, but he kind of makes a joke out of the fact that he's a convict, and that forces this person to leave his job. And yeah, basically these two episodes really show how unprofessional Michael can be and how tactless he is. And what did we give the convict for a rating?
Same grade, I think a C.
Okay, and uh, to wrap up, we are going to talk about our mid-year wrap-up of Cougar Town, because at this point we have finished watching the first 3 seasons and are now on episode 5 of season 4. So we wanted to discuss what we think of this show so far. So what are your thoughts on Cougar Town, since this is your first time watching it?
Now, it is the first time I watch sitcoms like Cougar Town, but so far I am really enjoying Courtney Cox, since I enjoying her on Friends as well. But also I'm getting the aspect of where the setting is in Florida.
And how would you compare and contrast that to the setting of Friends, which is in New York?
In New York, where you get the friends all gather around an apartment building, it's a little bit different living space than neighborhoods, homes that are like that in Florida. Plus, some of the characters are different, obviously, because they're different people.
So what I don't know if this is because Courtney Cox is one of the writers of this show, but what I have been noticing while rewatching Cougar Town is that a lot of the characters in this show have very similar characteristics to the characters in Friends. Like, obviously, Jules Cobb, who is Courtney Cox's character, is a carbon copy of Monica Geller. You can obviously tell that by her personality traits. Grayson, who is the person who Jules marries at the end of season 3, I would call him a hybrid of Chandler because of his inability to open up and show emotion, which is shown to us in episode 14 of season 2, Cry to Me, and Phoebe because he plays the guitar. Andy, Ellie's wife, is a very more put together, mentally stable, nicer version of Ross. Ellie is Rachel.
And Laurie Connor copies Emma. No, actually, Stan is.
Stan, who is the baby son of Ellie and Andy, is Emma, who is Rachel and Ross's daughter.
Oh, I'm sorry. And then Laurie is the one who carbon copies Phoebe.
Right. And then Bobby, who is Jules Cobb's ex-husband, is Joey. Tom, who is the next door neighbor of Jules and Grayson, is a younger version of Mr. Heckles, who is the old crotchety neighbor who dies at the beginning of season 2 of Friends. Jules's father, Chick, is Jack Geller.
And Travis, who is the son of Jules.
Jules is a less geeky version of Joey's nephew, Michael, from the Joey spinoff. And then Ellie's mother, I don't remember her name, but she represents Judy Geller because Jules we find out in season 2, episode 6 that Jules's mother died when she was younger, so that's why Ellie's mother is the stand-in for Judy Geller, because in the episode where Ellie's mother appears, we see that she is very mean to Ellie, and that's where Ellie sort of gets her meanness from, because her mother was always mean to her, and she kind of carried over that personality trait. So our favorite characters are Jules,
Grayson,
Lori, Tom,
and
and Travis, and our least favorite characters are Bobby and Ellie.
But our favorite episodes, we have a few of them on Cougar Town that we'd like to mention.
Okay, so the first episode we wanted to talk about is the pilot. And just like the pilot episode of Friends where Rachel walks into the coffee shop in her wedding dress, the pilot of
Cougar Town
is a great setup and introduction to all of the characters we will be growing to love throughout the show.
And our next one is all mixed up from season 2, and then a few others.
Okay, well, first of all, we're doing one season at a time. So for season... I don't remember what this episode was about, and I don't have IMDb open in front of me, but the next episode is You Wreck Me. And then the final favorite episode from season 1 was Here Comes My Girl, which is the Thanksgiving episode where we find out that Grayson and Bobby both have feelings for Jules. So, as Matt was saying, the first favorite episode from season 2 is All Mixed Up.
And then after that
No, talk about All Mixed Up. That's why I'm pointing at you.
I believe All Mixed Up was this episode where it's about kind of getting into someone's back while dating, isn't it? I forget now.
No, All Mixed Up is the episode that Jennifer Aniston...
Jennifer Aniston.
Just started on as a therapist who's very unprofessional. I hated her character. I hated Lisa Kudrow's character in Rhino Skin too.
Right.
The next episode from season 2 that we really liked, that we talked about in a previous monthly wrap-up video, was A Thing About You, which is the episode where Lori is like too in Jules's face about wanting to hang out with her because she's jealous about her relationship with Grayson. And we have talked about this episode before, so I don't want to really repeat myself. So if you want our full thoughts on that episode, please go back and watch the other video, which I believe is from March or April. The next season 2 episode we wanted to talk about is Cry to Me, which is the episode, as I just mentioned, where Grayson is emotionally closed off, and Jules tries to help him through that, so that way they can have a stronger relationship.
And then we also have Baby's a Rock and Roller because of Grayson, who is wanting to become a rock sensation.
So we will get into more details about that episode in a moment. So for Cry to Me, this is the episode I was talking about before, where where Grayson is showing that he's emotionally closed off. And as I have mentioned in a previous video, I feel like the plot development point about Grayson being emotionally closed off was handled much better in Cougar Town than in Friends. There was an episode in season 6 of Friends called The One Where Chandler Can't Cry, where basically Monica goes on this whole rampage about how Chandler doesn't show emotion and he doesn't cry, and she kind of gets really scary and goes off the rails a little bit, and gets really angry at Chandler for being emotionally closed off and kind of yells at him about it. So I'm wondering if when Courtney Cox was writing this episode of Cougar Town and characterizing Jules for this episode, she realized how mean Monica came off in the one where Chandler can't cry. And that's where she decided to go more easy on Jules with Grayson. The next episode, as Matt was starting to say, that is our favorite from
Season 2
is Baby's a Rock and Roller. So the plot device that was really used well from Friends in this episode is so in this episode, Grayson and Jules are babysitting Ellie and Andy's son Stan, and this represents the episode in Friends where Phoebe and Chandler, Monica and Chandler are helping Phoebe babysit Frank Jr. and Alice's triplets, Chandler, Frank Jr., and Leslie. So the main difference that I saw in this episode of Cougar Town was the maturity level of Grayson, because we see Chandler acting very immature and getting a toy that's not appropriate for little kids to play with, and then he ends up swallowing the toy gun from the figurine that he was going to show the babies, and has to go to the hospital because he's choking on it. And then in this episode of Cougar Town, Stan is obviously a lot older than the triplets, so these episodes would probably be good to be watched in like a child development class in a high school, because it shows child care of different age groups. Like Frank Jr. and Alice's triplets are infants, and then Stan is like 1 or 2 years old. So that was a very interesting comparison to make.
You could really learn a lot from that if you do. And then we also have the final 2 episodes of season 2, Something's Good Coming.
So this is the episode that wraps up season 2 that was mentioned in Miss Mojo's video about crossovers. And it bugs me that this show is considered a crossover. I think the reason why it's considered a crossover is because maybe in the show Community, Abed mentions that Cougar Town is his favorite show, and then the character who plays Abed shows up in one scene for half a second when Travis and Lori are outside at Subway eating lunch. And I don't think you can really call this a crossover, because the cameo of Abed is only for like a minute and a half, and he doesn't even say anything or interact with any of the other characters. So this episode fails as a crossover, but other than that, I liked it. So in this episode, Travis is having a really hard time with his breakup with his girlfriend, so he basically runs away to Hawaii to try to figure himself out. And I really liked the scene between Travis and Kristen in the second part of this 2-parter episode. Not Travis and Kristen, Travis and Lori. I'm sorry, where Lori is basically convincing Travis to come back to Florida and go back to school. I just think that scene is very sweet, and it really shows that Lori cares about Travis as a friend.
And then we just started watching season 3, and like we said, we are up to season 5. So that.
No, we finished season 3. We are on season 4.
Oh, that's right. We're now on season 4. I beg your pardon.
So our favorite episode of season 3 is A Mind of a Harvest Own, Full Moon Fever,
A One-Story Town, My Life, Low Life, Your World, Parts 1 and 2.
Okay, so let's just get into the comparisons of Friends with these episodes from season 3. So, with 8 Love Strange, are these plot devices from Friends used well? So, in 8 Love Strange, one of the main plot points is the fact that Jules is too predictable And there's a brief scene in one episode of Friends. I think it's the one where Monica gets her identity stolen. It is. It is that episode. It's the one with the fake Monica where Monica gets her credit card stolen and befriends the person who steals her identity. So, in Ain't Love Strange, Jules goes out of her way to prove to her friends that she is not predictable by agreeing to be part of a toilet papering prank. And I hated this plot line. I think this is a plot line from Friends that should have not been used because it just proved that Jules and her friends were sort of immature and childish. At the end of this episode, Grayson proposes to Jules and asks her to marry him after the papering prank, which to me killed the romance. I will always love the scene in Friends where Monica and Chandler are in the candlelit apartment. That proposal is always top notch for me.
And then in predictability, we are know a similarity between.
I just talked about predictability.
Okay, let's go on. Proposal.
Okay, Matt, I'm done talking about Ain't Love Strange. We're moving on to episode 2 now. A Mind and a Heart of Its Own.
Oh, I thought you were reading it down here. I didn't know that was that.
Right. See right here, A Mind and a Heart of Its Own.
Yes.
Okay, so in this episode, A Mind of a Heart of Its Own, basically it focuses on Monica. It focuses on Jules picking her maid of honor for the wedding, and she's choosing between Lori and Ellie. Basically, this whole plot line was better utilized in Friends because there's a scene in this episode where Joey and Ross are auditioning Phoebe and Rachel to pick who would be the better maid of honor. And this plot line was used poorly in Cougar Town because it was just Jules delegating specific tasks to them, which is pretty predictable and boring. So, the next episode we wanted to talk about was
Part 2 of My Life, Your World.
Exactly. So this is this is the wedding episode between Jules and Grayson. So the big difference between this episode and the one with Monica and Chandler's wedding in Friends is that Jules and Grayson choose to elope, and then Monica and Chandler have their wedding in a church. So Grayson wants to have the elopement in private without the rest of their friends around because he just wants the ceremony to be between the two of them and not with the rest of their friends, but obviously everybody else tags along. The sweetest scene in this episode for me was when Jules was asking her dad, Chick, to be ordained to be a minister at her ceremony. Like, that was sweet because he's older, so he may not be too familiar with the internet, so she was offering to help him, like, go online to be ordained to be a minister. And I just think that their relationship is sweet, much like Monica and Jack's relationship in Friends, which should have been, in my opinion, expanded upon in more episodes than just the 2 it was mentioned in. The one where Nana dies twice, where Jack is talking to Monica about how he wants to be buried at sea with a 6-gun salute, and the end of the episode where Monica breaks up with Richard, where Jack comes in to check on Monica after her breakup. So, and then this episode ends with Jules and Grayson getting married on the beach, which I thought was beautiful. I love the setting of it. But the ongoing issue with this whole thing with them getting married on the beach was that they couldn't get a permit to do that for whatever reason. So basically, they went against the law to have the wedding on the beach, which I didn't like.
And then, of course, they marry, and their commitment moves on to the next season.
Right. Another aspect of the episode Blue Sunday that I wanted to mention, aside from what we just talked about in the portion about serious issues and how they were handled, is there is a scene where Grayson, Bobby, and Andy are taking a picture with them, with Stan with handlebar mustaches to look like Tom Selleck. And I thought that was a really cute way for them to honor Tom Selleck. And that made me think of the episode of Friends, the one where Old Yeller dies, where this is the episode where Monica and Richard first start dating, and Chandler and Joey are like imitating Richard, Joey with the cigar, and Chandler with the mustache. Speaking of Tom Selleck, by the way, to close off this video, I wanted to talk about his memoir, which was one of my top reads for the month of May. So Tom Selleck is a much older actor. Before he was on Friends, he was on Magnum PI and also in the movie Three Men and a Baby, which I just mentioned. He Mostly he talks about the behind the scenes goings ons in Three Men and a Baby and Magnum PI, which I really enjoyed learning about. He briefly also talks about his current show Blue Bloods, but Friends is not really mentioned very often in this. So I really enjoyed this book a lot because it really educated me on what he does now and what he did before he was on Friends. So if you are a fan of Tom Selleck, I highly recommend this memoir to you.
And we shall say that before we close out our video. Thank you for your cooperation, and we'll continue to watch Cougar Town and compare with Friends here. But if there's anything else that is out and about that might interest you all, then we'll keep in touch and tell you about it.
Our next video will be out on July 21st after we see White Christmas at Main State Music Theater. So stay tuned for that video because we will be talking more about Marvel superhero movies. Obviously, we will be reviewing White Christmas, and we will be discussing the movie Clueless. For book reviews, we are talking about Daisy Jones and the Six and Never Met a Duke Like You, which is a modern interpretation of Clueless. So
And look for other stuff like that. So in the meantime, I am reading Daisy Jones and the Six and catching on very well. And last night, I heard for the first time when they were saying honeycomb.
So once he finishes reading Daisy Jones and the Six, we're going to review the book, and then in the fall, we're going to be watching the TV show and reviewing that for you guys. So that is something you can all look forward to. Have a great week and a happy and safe 4th of July. Thank you for tuning in.